Those who look hungry never get fed. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and in the world of dating, a mantra that somebody told me, it had to be about 20 years ago, they were explaining something to me about why some guys naturally turn women off. And they explained it as, those who look hungry never get fed. And I've been living by that mantra ever since. And you know, it's kind of a funny mantra because it's so true in all aspects of life. And I'll explain what I mean by this. So being hungry means like you need it, right? Like if you haven't eaten in a while, you're hungry for food. You're desperate for food. If you're really broke, you're desperate for money. I was walking by a restaurant row recently. I was in New York and we were going out to eat, and we're walking past a series of restaurants. And a lot of them were busy and crowded. And then there was this one restaurant, there was nobody there. And you know how like the waitresses and waiters come out and they try to get you to come into the restaurant? Well, they're coming out trying to, and they just looked so hungry, right? Like you could just tell that like nobody was eating there. They were broke. And it's like, I don't want to go eat in a place like that has to beg me to come in. You know, I want to eat in a place that's crowded and full of people. So those who look hungry never get fed. Well, what does it mean for a guy to look hungry? Well, I think if you think about it, you probably already know a lot of guys that do look hungry. Maybe you looked hungry. I know that there was plenty of times where I've gone out and I've been the hungry guy. It's worse when, you know, I'll go out with a group of people and somebody will post a picture somewhere and I'll see myself in the background of the picture and I just have this like hungry look, like, you know, that I'm just like zoning in, trying to find a girl to talk to or something like that. You know, that was my life for a really long time. And you still see these guys. It could be at work, it could be at Starbucks, where they just need the attention or the affection. They just want to hook up. They're just, it's hard to explain it, but we've all been there. It's like you just need to be around a woman. And what's bad about that is it reeks of desperation. Women can smell it on you. It's a stench that turns them off immediately, right? And you can't wash that stench off in the shower. They pick up on it. So what does it mean? Like what are some signals that you might be giving off a hungry vibe, right? Because those who look hungry never get fed. So how can you give off, what do you do to give off a hungry vibe? Well, let me go through some examples, right? And I'm gonna talk about Mr. Hunger himself. Back in the day, I used to work at this restaurant and I worked with this guy, Frank. And anytime I tried to explain hunger to somebody, I would just tell them about Frank. Or I would point to Frank and they would go, oh yeah, I know what hunger is. So Frank, I'll give you an example of some of the things he did that made him look really hungry. And if you're doing any of these, you gotta catch yourself and you gotta stop, right? So one of the first things that Frank would do would be complain about his dating life, right? So, or girls, he'd complain about dating or complain about girls, right? So Frank would be, you know, we would all be out hanging out and inevitably Frank would get in some kind of conversation of like, so why do girls only like assholes? Like, I'm a good guy, like I'm a catch. Like, why don't girls appreciate me? Like, you know, he'd be telling some girl, like, you know, she'd be talking about her boyfriend and like, you need a guy like me, right? Like, what are you doing, Frank? Like, yeah, I was at a car dealership once, right? And I'm looking at a car and the dealer goes to me, he literally says this to me, he's like, and I was like, I'm not sure about it. I was like, come on, man, I need to eat. Like, because you need to eat, I have to buy a car from you? You know, like, no, what are you talking about? And that's kind of how Frank was. Like, Frank wanted a girl, so he kind of like presented this attitude like, listen, I'm hungry, I need to be with a girl, right? And no girl wants that guy. No girl wants the guy that's complaining how no girls want him, right? They don't want that guy. The other thing that Frank used to do, and a lot of us do this, right, is asking to be set up, right? So maybe you're single and maybe you have friends that have girlfriends. Or maybe you just work with some girls, whatever the case may be, right? You know, Frank would be the guy that I would bring a girl around and within 10 minutes he'd be like, so do you have any cute friends? Why don't you bring your friends over? It's like, she doesn't want to hook her friends up with the hungry guy. You know, what are you thinking? Like, It's like that thing, like, what does this say? Nobody wants a club that is begging for them. Nobody wants to join a club that is begging for them to be a member, whatever, something like that. It doesn't matter. Point being is, no girl wants to be with the guy who's like, I need you to hook me up with your friends, right? Don't ask people to set you up. It comes across as hungry, as you can guess, right? Very, very, very hungry. So some other hungry things, minor hungry things, but hungry, and things that I see guys doing all the time is commenting or liking. I always get criticized for my spelling, so let me fix this before I have 15 comments telling me I don't know how to spell the word comment. So I don't even know if it's right. So commenting, right? So girls a lot of times will post videos on their social media, or they would post pictures of themselves, right? And a lot of times the girls will, obviously they're posting the ones that they know they look good in, right? A girl's not going to post the ugly picture of herself. So of course, a guy like Frank or a hungry guy would immediately be, you look really pretty in that picture. Oh, gorgeous. You know, it's like, you don't want to be that guy. Like me and Rob Judge, we laugh because, you know, we'll see like friends of ours, and the minute a mutual girl that we know posts pictures, we have friends who are always like the first one to comment. And we're like, do you not realize that like that makes you look like the hungry guy? Like it's obvious to everybody except you. And this is the thing about being hungry, is a lot of times when you're hungry, you're so hungry that you don't even realize that you're hungry. You know, you're kind of in a state of denial. You just have a single-minded focus of, I've got to talk to girls, or I got to get this girl to like me, or I got to go meet a girl, right? Anytime you're like, I got to go out tonight, I got to go meet a girl, like, you're probably not going to do good that night because you're so hungry, and girls can whiff it. They can smell it, right? Within 30 seconds of talking to you. So another sign is begging to stay, right? So, you know, we've all been hungry in various ways, but, and you never want to beg anything. Like begging in general is really bad. But I remember a time that I had this house party. I was throwing a party at my house, and there was a girl that I was kind of at the time interested in, and I invited her to the party. And first off, I was hungry the whole time at the party, waiting for her to come, right? So that's another signal. I'm not going to write that one down. Is when you know a girl's going to be somewhere and you're like waiting for her. You know, people can notice that. Or like you're looking at your phone to see if she's going to be here yet. And well, that was me all night, looking at my phone. Is she here yet? Is she coming? Is she not coming? Well, she shows up, and we actually hit it off, and things are going really well. And, you know, we're having this great conversation. I'm like, yes, you know, night is going perfect. And then, of course, her friend wants to leave. And her friend's like, we got to go now. And she's talking to me. She's like, oh, I got to go. My friend drove me here. And immediately I started panicking, right? Because I felt like I was losing my opportunity, and I got really hungry, and I started going, no, don't leave. Like, I'll drive you home, right? No. Then I start trying to convince her friend to stay, and I'm just like in just total salesman mode of why she's got to stay at this party. And of course, I don't want to admit it at the time, but I can admit it now. I just look like a hungry, desperate guy, right? And of course, I didn't get another chance with her because it was like the value that I had, and this is the thing with the girls a lot of times, right? Attraction isn't black or white. It's a sliding shade of gray. You can do things to improve your attraction, and you can do things to kill your attraction to her, right? And you can spike attraction, but just as easily, boom, you can kill it, right? And no matter how good that conversation was going with that girl, the minute I started begging, it was like, it was just a bad thing for her to see. And, you know, I messed it up, and we've all done it. A lot of guys watch these videos and they're like, oh my God, I messed up. I wish I saw this video sooner. And it's like, well, listen, you learn a lesson and then you move on. You don't make the mistake again. You can't really go back in time. So there's no point in complaining, but ingrain the lesson, because the worst is the guys who watch these videos and then they still do it. They still go out there and they still act hungry, or they still send her flowers, or they do any of that. What are some other ones? Checking in. So, texting too much in general can come across as hungry, but if you're texting her and it's humorous and fun, and a lot of like the stuff that we go over in magnetic messaging, where you're like kind of sparking an emotion, you can get away with it, right? Some girls, I'm not going to be one of those guys that just never text, but it comes across as hungry when you're sending what we refer to as checking in texts. That's when you're like you just need to hear from her. So you're sending messages like, "Hey, how's your day going?" Like the minute you get that, it's hunger, right? And we get them from girls too, and you kind of know, right? When you get these texts from girls, like that they're hungry. Like it's like, oh, she's kind of hungry. Like what is that? So when you send checking in texts too much, an occasional one is like, okay, but if all the time you're just sending her these like, how's your day going? Hope you're having fun. It comes across as hungry. There's no other way to describe it. So like I said, it's really easy to fall into this trap, especially when you are hungry, right? When you are really into a girl, or you're just lonely and you haven't had the affection or the validation or the attention of a woman in a long time. It's, when we go out, and we're in public, a lot of times that hunger really rises to the surface. So it's really important to be aware of it, right? Check yourself. Like, am I complaining? Catch yourself if you're complaining about your love life, or you're asking girls to set. A lot of this stuff is very easy to recommend, right? Leaning in, right? I didn't write that one down, but we've all been there too. We've all seen the guy, and he's talking to a girl, and he's like jumping out of his skin to talk to her, right? I can remember one time being out with some girl, and I'm like, we're having a talk, and then I realized that I'm like literally like this, and I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, compose yourself. So, you got to catch yourself these little things. Now, what's interesting is that, like I mentioned earlier, is that like there's moments where girls will test you. I've created videos on this idea that women test you and kind of how to handle these tests. But a lot of times when they're testing you, sometimes it's conscious, right? Because girls play the game too. Girls watch videos like this, and they read books, and they watch a video that says, don't text them today, don't go a day without texting them. So then she goes a day without texting you, and you freak out. Well, even though she was doing it as part of the game, you like failed the test, right? Sometimes she does it and it's not part of a game. Sometimes it's just a subconscious thing. Like she just kind of like does it, and how's he going to react? And you got to be really conscious of your reaction, because women are always testing you. And in a lot of ways, we're testing them as well. And we don't really think of it as, oh, I'm testing them. And they don't think of it as like, oh, I'm testing him. But it's just things we do. It's human nature. So, I have another video. If you haven't watched yet, I really recommend checking it out. Because in that video, I reverse engineer the process of falling in love, right? And the reason I say this is because a lot of guys think, well, if I've already messed up, right? If I already look hungry, can I change things? Can I not look hungry in her eyes? And the answer is definitely yes. And it's actually kind of a benefit, right? If you've messed up and you have been hungry in front of a girl, if you see her often, okay, that's important. If it's a girl that you messed up with that you have no chance to see, she lives in another state, or it's hard to repair that sort of damage. But if it's a woman in your social circle, your job, a girl that you date, you're still dating, and you were really hungry, it's really easy to repair that, because if you just stop acting hungry next time, it's kind of confusing to her, because she's going to go, what happened? Like, this guy was like really hungry. She's not going to use that word hungry. And some people say thirsty, and they correct me. They're like, it's thirsty. I'm like, listen, I've been saying hungry for 20 years. Thirsty, maybe it's a new word, but hunger is the word that I use. So don't correct me. So she may be thinking like, oh, he was so into me. I had so much of attention, and now I don't. And now it's kind of confusing. And we always say, and I say it in the video below where I talk about reverse engineering love, if you can get a woman to think about you when you're not around, you can make her fall in love with you. And that's why it's okay if you've messed up, because sometimes if you then change course, you become more interesting to her. It's like, whoa, what's going on with him, right? Like, because we all know that it's the things that we can't figure out that drive us crazy. Once we figured out something, right? Once you figure a girl out, you kind of lose, not as interested. Same thing with a woman, right? Once a girl knows she has you, once she's figured you out, she's not as interested. So in the video below, I reverse engineer this process of falling in love, and I talk about a game, a mind game type of thing, that sort of a technique I call the scrambler, that it really makes sure that you're not coming across hungry, and it makes sure you're doing things so that you're actually the one doing the testing. You're the one taking, you know, the more sort of socially valuable role in the interaction, in the relationship. So you can click that link below. And if you like this video, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you in my next one.